What do you think about Ferguson was in camp for, I mean, I don't know how long. It seems like a never-ending camp, maybe since January or something, because the fight with Khabib kept getting pushed back due to the COVID. So he's been in camp for a long time. And actually, on the date of the original fight, which I think was about 3 weeks ago, Ferguson actually made weight. And he's like got a cut to get to there. And he just did it because he said that basically he needed to follow through for himself and just make weight. So he made weight 3 weeks ago. But again, that's what makes Ferguson so unique and so interesting. You know, what are your thoughts on this, the length of the camp and doing things to yourself like making weight 3 weeks out? It's got to take a toll, I would imagine.
It shows why my son is a good scout for the Oakland Raiders. He texts me during the fight and says, Dad, you think cutting that weight is costing him a price right now? That's what he said to me, my son. And I think it's possible. Sometimes people, they're trapped by who they are. And who they are is great, and it's enough. Ferguson, who he is, what he's been, one of the most exciting, special fighters in MMA. I mean, special son of a B. What a and with love, I'm saying that in a most respectful way. But, I mean, just a special guy. But sometimes you could get trapped. It works. But you could get trapped into being that guy where you can't adapt. Where, you know, you're going to live or die with that. And you could get to a situation where somebody could say to you, and it happens in life, again, where somebody could say, Ken, listen, we're not questioning who you are. You shouldn't question who you are. But this time, let's make a little adaptation. You're only 3 weeks before the fight. If you cut the weight now, it could weaken you a little bit. No, I'm not. Call it what you want. Stubborn. Call it being a caveman. Call it being regimented. Call it being rugged, because he's rugged. They all are. Whatever you want to call it. Call it whatever the freak you want. Call it something. Pay attention to it, because it's just like when a guy gets to a certain point, an athlete who's been so successful, and it's time to change a little or walk away or whatever. Those times come. His ego doesn't allow it. And people say, oh, gee, look, his ego. Well, his ego made him. Without that power of that ego, he wouldn't have got to there.
That's a good point.
So maybe his ego destroyed him too. But his ego made him. You gotta be it's hard to be in these men's shoes. But you gotta give it a second of thought. That's what made him. That's his mentality. That, you know, I'm going to tell you another crazy story about Cuss. Cuss, one time, he used to make breakfast for me sometimes, but Cuss liked to eat. If you watch the podcast, you're going to find out that we did last week. But he loved to eat. Ken, you know, it was one of those things. He's Italian. He came from a poor family. There wasn't always enough money, but they always found a way to have enough food. Proud people, you know, just like we have today in all walks of life in society. And it stayed with him. You didn't waste anything either. So he would make eggs for me in the morning. He said, Teddy, what do you want? 6, 7? What do I got a crew with me here? I thought I came in alone into the kitchen. What? 6, 7, 8? Well, but that was Cuss. I said, no, 2, 3. 2! What are you going to do with 2? That wouldn't fill the cavity in my tooth. All right, Cuss, listen. Give me, how about you give me 2 and a slice of bacon? I don't know. It's like I got to make a deal to get breakfast over here. Like I can't just say I want 2. So one day he's making his eggs, 7, 8, 9, whatever it was, and he loved hot pepper, Italian again. I don't know. That's part maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. And so he's putting the hot pepper. Somehow the lid. It happens, right, Ken? The lid wasn't tight. I didn't do it, Ken. Don't even dare to think that.
That's what I was just about to say.
Ken,
I know you did it.
How could you think that? Come on. So the cap's loose. He goes to sprinkle the red hot pepper, and it all falls in. The cap comes off, and it all falls in the eggs. Right? It's rough. Like my son would say, that's rough. That's rough. Sometimes at the tailgates, we go to the tailgates before the Jets game. I bought season tickets to the Jets because you couldn't get them for the Giants back then. And I wanted to have season tickets so me and my son, when he was a little boy, we could be together for all the games. And so I bought season tickets from the Jets, and we'd go to the games. And part of it, a friend of mine ran a tailgate, and the tailgate was a man's tailgate. You know what I'm saying, Ken? It wasn't like,
yes, I
if
do.
You were soft a little bit and your stomach, don't come. If you had a weak stomach, don't come. Like I shouldn't even get into some of that. And God bless the guy. The guy was one of my best friends. I love the guy. Loved him to death.
At the Jets parking lot, they would go through there. If your tailgate wasn't man enough, they'd probably just take you and throw you out of the parking lot. Jets tailgating is not for the faint of heart. Jets in Buffalo, if you don't bring your A game, they might just scare you right out of the parking lot.
I'm speaking to a man that understands. I'm speaking to the right man. So, things, my son was like 8 years old, 7, 8, growing up. And he's watching, he's watching this, And the guy, great guy, great man. But rough. It's a man's tailgate. And so he had nice steaks, and he went to a good butcher. It's not like we were eating anything that wasn't good. It's what happened to the food before it got to your mouth. But the food, the steaks were prime. So he decided he's got his own little recipe, and he's proud. He's proud of his tailgates. So he puts Peter Luger's steak sauce. You had Peter Luger's steak sauce, Ken?
Of course, my favorite, actually.
All right, it's great. So he would put his little touch. He would put it on it. Right? And then he would let it cook into the steak. It was nice. One little problem. He didn't have one of those brushes to put it on with. So he used his hand. So he would wipe it on all these steaks, these beautiful steaks. There's 30 men waiting for their steaks, 30. And they're waiting for their steaks. And he's got the barbecue. He's got, you have to do a couple rounds because the barbecue could only fit maybe, 7, 8, 9, 10. So he's got to say, and he's rubbing it on with the hand, And then he's got to get to the next batch. Well, we might as well go all the way with this, right, Ken? He didn't allow napkins. He didn't think it was something that should be allowed in his tailgate. So,
no.
Yeah, he licked his hand clean. You got to have a clean hand for the next batch. You can't have Peter Luger.
I know who this guy is.
We're not putting out any names here. And
it's Rob Moore.
No, it's not. So, he cleans his hand and he goes on to the next batch. He's a guy that I love. He goes on to most people, to tell you where we are and the kind of crowd we're in, most people, they're not even moving. They're not phased. But a few of them, the newcomers that had never been here, the newcomers, and maybe an 8-year-old, they're looking and they're like, kind of like you need Alka-Seltzer already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're looking like, what the? And all of a sudden he notices, because he's great. He's aware of the crowd. He's aware of everything. So he notices, he looks, he goes, wah. What's the matter? Problem? And, he's got the, still dripping a little bit, a little bit. He goes, don't worry. And I always careful how I talk on this show. But for this one, I'm going to say it. It's not that bad. But if you have kids, tell them to leave just for a minute. Just for a minute. He goes, what? I wipe my ass with my right hand.
That's comforting.
I knew you'd appreciate that. I knew you'd appreciate that, Ken. And so getting back to Cuss.
That's a good one.
Getting back to Cuss. He dumps the whole thing, the whole red pepper, into this 6, 7, 8, 9 eggs, whatever he was having. But he lives by a code, like I'm talking about with Ferguson. He lives by a code that you make a mistake, especially with food, the way he was brought up, you pay for that mistake. You pay for that. You don't throw the eggs in the garbage and put 8 new eggs in. You don't do that. You live by a principle, by a freaking code. So I'm in the kitchen, I'm watching this, and he puts them on. He graveled. He said a few Italian curse words, maybe. I don't know. And he mumbled to himself, and then he put them on the plate and he starts eating them. I'm standing there, because what are you doing? And he figures he's giving me a lesson at the same time. He says, you pay for your mistakes in life, Teddy. I said, the freak, you sometimes throw them out. No. You got to pay for your mistakes in life. That night, I wanted him to go to the gym with me, right? Because he didn't go to the gym with me all the time. Because he was basically semi-retired, and it was so important for him. He's my mentor. He's my surrogate father in some ways. I want to make him proud. I'm busting my backside training all these fighters, pros during the day, amateurs at night. I want him to see what's going on. And a lot of times he wouldn't come. And then, he'd come maybe once a week. And it was a big deal for him to be there for me to show him what I was doing. And he was supposed to come to the gym this night. And he couldn't come. You know why? He was on the toilet bowl. Okay? Crapping out red stuff.
It was hotter on the way out.
And he hurt himself. And what's the moral to this story? The moral to this story, the point I'm making is a guy like Ferguson, who probably shouldn't have cut the weight. 3 weeks before the fight, in all seriousness now.
Yeah.
Couldn't get away from what he is. He lives by a code. It worked for him. It hardened him. It chiseled him. It punished him. But it's what it needed to be. That I live up to my obligations, my commitments, what's in front of me. And he was living up to that. I'm cutting a freaking weight like I had a fight. Mm-hmm. Just like Cuss is eating the eggs, even though he freaking didn't have to eat them. Because that's the code. That's the principle. That's what got him there. That's what got him there. And that mentality sometimes can bring you to great, and it did. Heights. Great heights. It could hurt you sometimes.
Yep.
It could bring you down sometimes. And this was one of those times. But he couldn't shake away from that.
Yeah. But to his credit, I think when he made the weight, because there was a little bit of Khabib was getting a little bit of heat because he was in Russia and he was honoring the, he said, look, I'm not going to come and fight. We don't know what's going on with the virus. He was being smart. And I don't think he had a firm date and an opponent yet in Gaethje, and it was the only thing in front of him was making that weight. So in his defense, I think he made
No,
the way
I'm not.
thinking
Listen,
there might
you don't have to defend him. I am not knocking him.
Oh no, I know you're not. I just wanted to give the full
but
context.
I'm applauding him.
Yeah.
I am recognizing him for being a special guy and for making himself that special guy. And this is the way he did it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that sometimes the things that make you great could destroy you.